Thanks so much for having me, coming along today. I'll just start by saying a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is specific to crowdfunding, and if you are running a campaign, have a project in mind. But it's really applicable to any project that you might have, and moving forward, kind of using it as learning the skills to talk about your project, what it is, and creating kind of marketing tools and strategies and promotional campaigns about what you do. But anyway, that was just a little intro. Dave gave us a little introduction, but a little bit about Pozible. We started in 2010 in Sydney, so we're 6 years old this year, which is pretty exciting. I kind of feel like we're slowly getting there. We've had 11,000 successful projects on the site since we started, and have raised over $43 million for individuals and small organisations. And at the moment in the world, we have a 60% success rate, which is the best in the world. I don't know if any of you are up on crowdfunding stats, but that's pretty good. I think the biggest two in the world at the moment is Kisvarda and Indiegogo, and they're about 38% successful, and for Australian groups, about 13 to 14. So, as people that are based in Australia, we're pretty well set to kind of help you succeed in what you need to do. And that's a family photo we took the other day. A little bit about crowdfunding. I assume people have maybe heard about it, but a really brief overview. If you are an individual or an organisation, you have an idea, but you need money for it, you can make a page, put it up on the platform, and invite people to pledge to support you. And if you get enough people to pledge to support you and you hit your funding target, you receive that money. And there are lots of different ways that you can make people pledge to you, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. A few things that Pozible, we're a little bit different to all other crowdfunding platforms, that we're an all or nothing platform, which means that if you don't hit your target, you don't get any money. And that seems sort of mean, but we do that for two reasons. And the first reason is because we believe that you know the best about your product, or you should, and you should have a really clear understanding about how much you actually need to create what you need to do. And if you don't hit that goal, it's going to be very hard for you to actually achieve what you set out to achieve. So we don't want to get you halfway and then you find that you can't actually finish what you started. And as well as that, it really helps, and just generally as well, when you're building a community behind you when you run a campaign, if you have an all or nothing target that if you don't hit it, everyone misses out, that can be a really strong motivator to get a community of people behind you to make sure you're successful, because if you're not successful, they also lose out. And the other thing about Pozible is that we're rewards based, so different to kind of donations or something like that, you can offer rewards or offer exclusive things to people who want to support you and want to be involved in your product in the early stages. And that's something that's changing in Australia too. Just generally, we're about to see laws coming in about equity crowdfunding, which means people can, it's almost like micro investments, people can at the start of what you're doing invest in you. That's not currently legal yet. We've had a few other things politically we've got to sort out before that. So this is an example here that we've just had a really successful campaign that started last week, which is a small Hobartian designer who she makes silverware and jewellery, and she was hoping to start up a shopfront in Melbourne. So that's what her campaign was, and pretty much her. I've chosen this project just because it was really recent. She did really well. She needed to raise $10,000, and in the first 2 weeks, she's exceeded that. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what it kind of looks like on the page. So all projects sort of take this template. You have a video here explaining who you are, a mission statement, really getting to the point of what it is that you want to do and who you are, your target amount, which is this one here, that if you don't hit, you don't get anything, and your time frame. And that can be a maximum of 60 days, and we tell people maybe 30 days is about the right amount to run a campaign for, just because, again, if you're thinking about it as a marketing tool, 30 days is plenty. You want to be active in that 30 days, you want to be building momentum in that 30 days, and we find 60 days can be quite a big undertaking for someone who might be doing it on their own, an individual or a small organisation. And something else I want to say just before I dive into more stuff about specifically about a project, something that you can take away from running a campaign, it shouldn't just be about the money that you raise, but it will also be about the supporters that you involve. And even if you want to run an early stages campaign, it's an amazing proof of concept then as you move forward. If you were then to organise, you wanted to apply for a grant, or if you wanted to approach small businesses, all of a sudden you have this successful project that you've run that you can say, this is how much I was able to raise on my own, this is, 100 names that are involved and interested, and that can really help you move forward as well. And the language that you're using when you're making a campaign should carry over in, try and think of running a project as an exercise in learning how to concisely say who you are and what you need. And if you can do that successfully, not only will you raise the funds, but that will help you as you move forward. Going back to this one, on your campaign page, you really want to get across your story, so a strong sense of who you are. And we find after 6 years of crowdfunding, people are just as likely to pledge, if not more likely to pledge to someone than just an ambiguous idea. So if they get a sense of who you are, why it is that you are doing what you are doing right now, and how this particular campaign can help you progress, that's actually far more motivating than saying, this is a great product, aren't you involved in my product? They can work really well together, but it's good to have your story as part of it. And also, make sure you come across in it. So you don't have to be so formal as if you were maybe in a grant application. You're talking to people, and it's great to go forward with a sense of audience and who might be involved, who might want to be involved in your project. And think about what also speaks to you. So if you have a look at some other campaigns, or if even just in general, you're more of a visual person, you understand photos or you understand graphs better, include that in what you do. We really suggest you make a video. It seems really scary to lots of people, but we see of our successful campaigns, of campaigns with a video, 61% are successful, and campaigns without a video, 42% are successful. And that could be a lot of reasons, but we do just see that people don't spend a lot of time on your page. People have a really short attention span, and if they can in a minute kind of get a sense of who you are, what your project is, that's awesome, and a video is just a really great way to do that. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. In fact, it's probably better if it's just like you and your laptop, explaining who you are. I have a lot of people freak out about it, wanting to seem professional, but at the end of the day, it's not professional, and you don't have any cash, and you don't want to come across like you're set up and established, because it kind of goes against what you're then asking people to support you in. So this one here is another campaign that was run by LimeDrop a few years ago for their betting line called Cloudland. So they used Pozible to fund, people could pre-purchase the betting, and they raised over $23,000, and it was one of our most successful. They wanted to start a new betting line with bamboo sheets and things. So they used it as a tool for people to pre-order, and if they didn't hit their goal, they weren't locked into having to make any of the products. So I think for them it was a really risk-free way to make a whole new line that they, weren't sure if there was a market for. And just up there I've got a little note. In everything that you're doing, and especially in your video, just always go back to this. Who are you? Why are you doing it? What's led you to this point right now? What is it that you're creating? Make that really clear. Don't make people work for that. And a call to action, a really strong call to action at the end that says support me, or pledge me, or if I get this money, this is what I can achieve. Help me now. I spoke about this before, but people don't spend a lot of time on your page, so if you can be as concise as possible, it's really helpful. We did a little bit of a survey, and people spend about 1:45 on your page. Some people will read everything, some people really won't. That's just something to keep in mind. This smiley face guy is what we call the U-curve of doom, or the trough of sorrow, lots of other fun names. But it is a graph of what every single campaign goes through on Pozible, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, all crowdfunding campaigns, and a lot of marketing campaigns, a lot of corporate giving campaigns go through this same, trough. And what this is right at the start, when you launch, when you're talking about it and you're excited, you see a lot of pledges. You'll see a lot of activity on your page. And then again, right at the end there, where people are motivated by a deadline, they've seen you've got some success and you're so close, again, you'll see a lot of pledges on the side. And then in this middle bit here is this like U-curve of sorrow downtime where you can feel like you're talking about it a lot, people seem really interested, but it's not actually resulting in any physical pledges on the side. I talk to a lot of people in this bit when they call Pozible and they're like, I don't want to do it anymore, I'm not going to make it. And I show them the U-curve of doom and say, you'll get there. And I put this in any talk I do ever because I just want anyone who's going to run one to know before they start, it's all going to be okay. A little bit about rewards. So I did mention that we're a rewards-based. So for your project, you can offer people different ways to be involved. It is interesting to know that 1 in 3 people who pledge on our site don't ever want a reward. So there's still a very strong altruistic kind of motivation behind people a lot of the time. Like 1 in 3 people just want to give you some cash. But for those 2 other people, they're going to want something. So our advice, 50, 25, and 100, they're the top 3 kind of amounts that people will pledge. The average is about $80. So have something at least at those price ranges. And that can be as simple as for $25, send you a thank you card or a post on your Facebook page or something like some kind of easy recognition. And we say that the best rewards are priceless and worthless. So they shouldn't cost you anything outside of what you're already doing. If you can come up with rewards that are a byproduct of your process, that would be interesting to someone who is interested and engaged in what you're doing, then you've really cracked it. And I'll give you a few examples. The 3 kinds of rewards that we have are recognition, tangible, and experience. So recognition, again, is as simple as a thank you, a shout out, a card, listing someone's name in a book or on a website. Tangible is a product. So if it's as simple as like a pre-purchase. Someone's crowdfunding to make an album, they get the album at the end. An experience, so you're inviting someone to come in and do something, so coming to a launch party or hosting an event for them. The few examples I have here was for recognition, we had a group that were making ice cream, they wanted to start an ice cream business. And so for recognition, if you pledged a certain amount of money, you could name and design one of the ice cream flavors. And live on in their business in that way, which is something, a really neat kind of way that you could be involved. It's an experience that you couldn't get another time. So for someone, that's really cool, and for these people, that was something they're going to have to do anyway. They were going to have to design some flavors and name some flavors anyway. This $100 one here, the common gift pack. So this is a tangible example. We had a really big campaign run recently with the Abbotsford Convent. They wanted to go solar, so they raised $60,000. And luckily, they are a big organisation with a lot of partners, so they don't themselves have a lot of money. But for this tangible reward, they went out to their networks and sort of said, if you can't financially support us, we'd love any kind of in-kind support that you can give. And so they were able to get, gifts from ASOP or some yoga vouchers from people that use their space all the time, and they could make this pack to then give out to people. Something I'll note, if you are going to give out physical stuff, like if you're making your own product, if you're starting a business and people are pre-purchasing, really factor in your time and shipping in that reward amount. Make it worthwhile. You don't want to get to the end and have people have only spent $30 on a t-shirt when it's actually going to cost you a lot more, it's a lot more labor intensive, and all of a sudden you have to package it and post it. Make sure your reward amounts cover your costs. And then the last one here quickly, this one was for a film, so this one was an experiential, and again a really great and easy way. If you spent X amount of money, $150, you got to be an extra in the film. So for someone who is into independent film, that's really cool. You get to go on set, see what happens, be part of the actual movie. But for the film creators, that was something they were going to have to find people to get to do anyway. That's rewards. Here, so you will need a promotional strategy, and again, this is crowdfunding aside. If you're starting any small business, looking for any kind of funding, you're going to have to start talking about what you're making. And this can be quite scary, but it's super important. And we find that crowdfunding can be a really great tool to do that. It's a really great beginner's tool because all of a sudden you have this thing that you can talk about. You know, it's not just saying, hi, here I am, this is my business. You can say, hi, here I am, here's my business, here's my page, get an idea, and here's how you can get involved. So that can be really valuable. We did a little survey on people who were unsuccessful, who ran unsuccessful campaigns last year, and they could tick a whole number of reasons, but the main reason people felt like they didn't succeed was because they didn't have a strong enough promotional strategy. So put it all together and then forgot about it. Thought the magic of the internet would bring in money. And it's not like that at all. You have to be pushing people to your page, talking about what you do, and getting people involved. And so having said that, if you've got an idea right now, or if you're working on something, it starts right now. You should be talking to those people, being active in the communities that you think would be interested, and really think about how your approach to partners can work. So here we've got this little thing. You should be thinking about your core supporters. Those are people that know you, who are interested in what you do, who maybe will support you no matter what. Your mum is like, right in the middle there. Don't touch it. And then it kind of spreads out from there. And that's how you grow as well. If you can get your core supporters involved and active, it gets a lot easier to move out of this tier. And that works generally, but then also in a crowdfunding sense. If people come to your page and they see that there's been activity on your page, they're more likely to support you. They're more likely to get involved because they can see that other people are interested, there's been activity. And so if people then come to you third and fourth hand, maybe they hear through the media or a friend of a friend, they will also want to get involved. Use social media, start building a social media following, have a page, Facebook, everyone's on Facebook. I guess if you're particularly a fashion business, Instagram's a great one, things that are visual. Don't waste your time on places that your audiences don't hang out. Think about where your target audiences are on the internet and focus on it. Because social media can be a time suck. And be clever about it. There are tools where you can schedule social media, make sure you're active. No, don't just be posting yourself, but we talk about having content being 80%, 80-20. So 80% should be you talking about things that are interested, being engaged in other people, articles about similar things, and then 20% should be talking about you specifically, spruiking your product, whether that's to sell or whether that's to pledge. And that will actually help you set up being an active and important voice in your industry, not just someone who needs something all the time. And if you can create a strong social media presence as well, that will help you beyond crowdfunding. If you can, be engaging and engaged with your communities. I'm working it now. Oh, here we go. And that's something else. When you're using Pozible as a funding tool, it can be quite closed if you're just getting money from a sponsor or from a grant. Because it is such a democratic situation, you all of a sudden have a whole lot of people that are emotionally invested in your journey. And it's really worthwhile keeping those people updated and engaged. So we talk about key milestones that you should talk to them about. So maybe when you hit 50%, congratulating everyone, thanking them, asking them to continue to pledge. At 30 and 70, I have those marked out because at 30% we see that 80%, there's a lot of percentages there. But if you can hit your 30% of your target, you're 80% likely to be successful. We see very few campaigns that once they hit that 30% are unsuccessful. You can kind of roll on from there. And then again at 70%, it goes up like it's 98%, you'll probably hit your goal. And it'll probably be in the last 24 hours and that will be really stressful. That's just what happens. Stretch goals are a really interesting thing to think about. If you need $20,000 to start whatever you're doing, but that seems really scary, you could set your target as 15. That's going to get the bare minimum. But in all your discussions with everyone, really explain it. 20,000 is your stretch goal. And if you hit 15, great. But here's all the other things you'll be able to do with that 5,000, and really motivate people to keep pledging and keep being part of your campaign. And think about those people that are getting in early and supporting you as you move forward, and think of ways that you can engage them beyond the campaign. I hope it's come across. It's just as much about the crowd as it's about the funding. You really want to think about running your campaign as building a network that's going to help you. All of a sudden you have these investors who want to see how you do and really take that with you as you move forward. Crowdfunding is low financial risk. It doesn't cost you anything unless you get the cash. So we take 5% of successful pledges, but if you don't hit your goal, you haven't lost anything, and you don't have to do any of the things that you've promised in the campaign. As I said before, it's a really great proof of concept to be able to say, this is something I self-ran, I self-funded, this is what I'm able to do now, and can give people, future funding people, a lot of, trust in you. And you can use it as a tool for audience development. And at the end of the day, you're in charge. There's no acquittal process, there's no small bank loans. You get that money and then you can use it however you like. So if there's things that grants normally wouldn't cover, like a wage, you were in charge of how that money is blocked out and used. Just quickly, these are our rules. We try not to say donations because people aren't donating to you, they're getting something. So you just say the words pledges or support. You can't offer a lottery, so you can't say if you support me, you go in the chance to win something. That's just really confusing for a lot of people. I was speaking to a lady yesterday who thought Pozible was eBay, and she kept being like, I've been outbid. It was really hard to explain to her that she had not been outbid when we got there. The 5% Pozible service fee is what we take only on successful campaigns, and then there's a small bank merchant fee as well. And our front page is run by whatever's trending, so I can't help you. I get a lot of people being like, come on, pump me up. But it's not me, it's some wizards. And if you have any questions, I know that was very specific, project heavy, but if you've got any broader questions or you've got some ideas and you're not sure if it fits, send me an email. I'm just up in Collingwood as well, and I'm always happy to talk to people. I think that's probably all my time.
That's cool. We have 5 minutes for some questions. I thought it was interesting that 80-20 rule. I mean, that makes sense that you want to build a reputation not just for asking for stuff, but actually for something of interest, and that you are interesting and engage with other people. That's a good rule of thumb. Any questions from people?
Yeah. What sort of what are the demographics of the backers who are backing up this whole campaign?
Yeah. So we find a lot. You have to start your own networks, absolutely, and that's kind of how you gain momentum. But we find people that come from all different demographics using Pozible. We have been working with Deakin University recently. They've started using us for funding their research campaigns. And they were really hard to get on board, but they now will use us forever because they were saying that 80% of the people that now support their campaigns are people that they had no connection to. Previously it's always been alumni and things that have been giving to research, whereas now it's this whole broad range of the community who they never thought would be interested in the research that they're conducting. So I think it's, again, coming back to that, if you can clearly say who you are and give people the impetus to want to support you, there's a broad range of the community that will want that, that enjoy giving back and finding ways to support small things.
Any other questions? And when you ask a question, if you maybe say your name and where you're from as well.
Hi, my name is Carmen and I'm from this college. And I was wondering, the leads that you generate from the pledgers, is there a way of collecting that data before you reach your target?
Mm-hmm. So as soon as someone supports you, they go into your supporters list, and whether you're successful or not, you'll have those people's details. As you move forward, you can contact them. So you get names and email addresses and phone number if they choose.
Right.
And when they support you, they do so in the understanding that you will contact them about the project all the time. So yeah, that's also why that can be really handy to then come away with all this data and this kind of list to move forwards. Yeah.
John from Neighbouring Denham. In regards to this, the important thing is the story and the storytelling.
Yeah.
So if you don't get that right, it's a chance of not
I mean, it's
setting-
generally a really key
It
component.
is. So how does Pozible actually assist companies in getting that right? Do you have a marketing arm that actually does all the videoing, or if you work with that?
So we're really tiny. We're 6 people at the moment in Collingwood, and 2 of us are project advisors full time. And so we can definitely help you with that. But in terms of physically videoing it and things like that, that's definitely up to you. We can put you in contact with people that we know have worked well before, and we're always happy to kind of look over drafts and give you any tools that you might need. And one of the other things is that while the campaign's live, you can still edit things. So, you know, if you get to halfway and you say, oh, I just don't know what's working, maybe we haven't got this story right, we're happy to sit down with you and be like, well, maybe we change this and see what happens. Or maybe we added a rule here and there and see if that is changing anything. So there's the flexibility while the campaign's running to, you know, change things
So-
as you see they might need to be changed.
So there's a review process.
Yeah, and I see all the projects that come through and approve them before you can go live. So I've got a pretty good sense of what will work and what won't, and I'm really happy to talk to anyone at any point about that.
Just a quick question, Bron. I'm just starting off in business, but I went to one of your workshops a couple of years ago in Collingwood, and I do remember them saying that sometimes you reject projects. So on what basis would you reject a project?
Yeah, so I was just saying I approve all the projects, and it's really rare that I would reject one, just because it's not up to us. If there's a community for it that might want it, you know, we're not there to say yes or no. I would only reject a project if it looked illegal. Like, if it was really something that I was like, oh. I rejected one the other day because they used a lot of really bad words, and I just was like, maybe we can change this up. But yeah, as long as it's not illegal and it's not dodgy, sometimes you have to do a bit of a Google search. You get a vibe pretty quick if it's wrong. But generally, if you think there's an audience for it, then you're more than welcome to run a campaign. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, does it actually cost anything to start? Okay.
No. So it would only cost you anything once you're successful. And you can factor that in. So if your target is 10,000, just know that about 8% of that will go to fees, and you can kind of put that on top. So making sure you get your 10,000 at the end. Yeah.
Thanks, Bron. Has anyone actually used Pozible for a campaign yet?
Oh, yeah. I should just refer to you.
And what was your experience with it?
I was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran my business, which
Uh-huh.
I've got a men's label.
Uh-huh.
So
And what was the campaign for?
to start, I wanted to buy some sewing machines.
Okay,
So I started up a little studio in my basement. And
Great.
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, definitely in the design and fashion world, we've got a lot from like pre-purchasing things that haven't happened yet to, I think 2 girls just ran a campaign for personal development. They just wanted to go on a buyer's trip around Southeast Asia and see where the products were coming from, so they raised money for that. It's because it's not a strict grant, you don't have to tick any boxes. If there's a project that you have, it can be quite flexible, as long as you can justify it.
I think I said it a little bit earlier, but we're keen to be developing a partnership with Pozible for this industry to bring, I guess, make more accessible to everybody what Pozible does. And we've been talking about that, and we've still got a little bit of work to do on it. It's just basically organising it. But I think some of that should make it easier to get videos done, and maybe we can put some support around it as well, access to different people who can help out with different things, but and just build awareness as well. Instead of one person having been helped by Pozible, maybe 20 or 30 could be. So, but thanks, Bron. That's fantastic. So.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Claire. I run 2 businesses, The Dress Collective and Fashion Advocate. There's a few of my designers in the audience who I'll introduce you to in a bit as well. I'm going to walk you through my story first, because once you understand my background, it makes sense as to why I started the 2 businesses that I did. So My first memory of anything fashion, I was 8 years old and I taught myself how to sew on my great-grandmother's 1960s big heavy sewing machine. My mum used to let me cut up old pillowcases and scraps of material, and I used to stick things together and break the machine all the time. But that was when I first sort of worked out that I wanted to do something in fashion, and the beauty of sort of creating something from scratch and working it out as you go. I started my own label, Harriet Hill, straight out of school. When I look back now, it's completely different to my aesthetic. But I inherited a lot of vintage textiles and fabrics from my other great-grandmother, who had a shop in the 1930s in Bendigo. So a lot of the prints and patterns were really retro and old school and really, really cool florals. But inheriting that fabric as well is where that sort of ingrained my love for sort of sustainability and working with old fabrics and becoming aware of the fabric and textile kind of process and what happens with fabric and where it goes and all those kinds of things. So with Harriet Hill, I did a couple of fashion shows. I was involved with undressed runways. I did 4 shows with them. I worked everything out the absolute hardest way possible. I hadn't been to uni yet. I was learning from my both lots of grandmothers. YouTube was really handy. I was using Microsoft Paint to make my images for social media. Instagram and all those kinds of things weren't big back then. So I really taught myself the hard way how to do everything. But it was really good because learning the hard way teaches you a lot of things. So that's how I started out with my label. It was a really, 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 really slow process. I was doing markets at 4 a.m. on the weekends. I did have stock on consignment in a Brisbane store, so I tested the waters there, and it was quite a slow process, painstaking, but it was a really worthwhile process. Whilst I was running my own label, I was also working for other people, getting experience. I did a lot of styling for Dallies, Alex Perry, Camilla. I was doing runways for Living Silk, really big scale productions, Treasury Casino, those kinds of things, huge. It was really good. I think when you're running a label, and this is one of the things that I'll get to why I started the 2 businesses that I did, a lot of brands sort of start, okay, I love fashion, I know I want to design something, but they don't have an understanding of all the other elements that go into running a fashion label. So I threw myself into everything that I could to try and work out the ins and outs of running a fashion label. And first and foremost, I obviously needed money to run my fashion label, so I was working full time. So that was hard as well, but that's what you have to do when you start a label, and another reason why I started my 2 businesses down the track. So in 2014, after working with really big companies and really established labels, I started to see that there was a really big gap for emerging labels and that there wasn't much for them. There were these huge fashion shows for all of the established, but not much for emerging in Brisbane. So I started Fashion Fridays, and again, terrible name when I look back on it now, but you do these things. Obviously, it was on a Friday, and I worked with about 35 labels over a 6-month period. We had 1 runway a month, and there was about 6 or 7 labels. And for a lot of them, it was the first time they'd ever showcased, so it was a really good experience for them. It was just, the public would come along, and it was a bar, and it was a really good social thing for Brisbane, and it started to kind of build the fashion scene for the emerging labels in Brisbane. It was really good. And I worked the whole series in with a local boutique who ended up taking on one of the labels at the end, so it was a really good opportunity for them to kind of explore the runway side, work with makeup artists, photographers, all that kind of stuff, and then also go into stocking. So again, working with all the designers through Fashion Fridays, I started to really work out what they were struggling with, what they needed, what they had, what they didn't have. And this is really when I started to kind of navigate and work out what I was going to start doing for emerging labels. The first business that I started that I have now dropped off, and I'll tell you about my new businesses, but this was Emerge Australia, so I started that for emerging labels to look after their PR and their marketing, do runways and events for them. This was also the start of, so Emerge Australia did the Emerge Australia Fashion Precinct in 2014 with at the Tenerife Festival, and that's it over there. I turned an empty laneway into a runway, had 40 brands over 7 runways in one day, and it was absolutely huge. We had thousands of people through. It was absolutely amazing. It was really good. The 7 different runways connected the emerging brands with a lot of established boutiques, and it was a really good way for everyone to kind of connect with each other. It was an absolutely huge event, and off the back of that, I got a scholarship with the Queensland Overseas Foundation to travel and work in fashion. So I put Emerge on hold, and I packed my bags and went overseas. It was absolutely amazing. I was away for 6 months. I did Milan, Paris Fashion Week, trade shows in New York, did America, Europe, UK, Southeast Asia. It was absolutely incredible. Milan and Paris Fashion Week were pivotal moments for me. And Paris Fashion Week is what I like to call my moment. It was Paris Fashion Week that I really worked out 100% what I wanted to do. It was at AFN first, and I was sitting in the front row, and it was this big, beautiful, empty concrete, empty hangar, 3 rows either side, and it was probably 30 metres long, and all the way up the end there was sort of smoke bellowing out down the runway, and Björk was on, and it was completely silent other than that. And to my right there was 30 or 40 photographers, and they were all kind of arms and legs on top of each other, and you couldn't hear anything except the sound of their shutters, and it was just, I still really struggle to kind of put into words what I was feeling, but it was sort of this moment where everyone was there for the exact same thing. And yeah, I can't describe what happened, but that's what I call my moment. And it was sort of, everyone was in the crowd waiting for this model to come out, and as she bounded down the runway, the flickers were all going at the same time, and you can read the full story on my blog, but that's what I call my moment. And so I decided then that what I wanted to do was come home and find those experiences in the local industry and communicate the experiences that the designers have, creating that to the public. So I launched the Fashion Advocate. That's it, top right hand corner there, you can see it. It shares stories with designers, lifestyle brands. It's all about Australian made. It's also a magazine now, which you can buy online, little plug. It's different to a lot of other fashion magazines because another reason why I started the Fashion Advocate is, there are a lot of, really pretty fashion blogs and magazines out there, but not a lot that actually share the stories about the designers, why they do, what they struggle with, and that's what the Fashion Advocate does. So with the stories online and the stories in the magazine, they're not all kind of glamorized and pretty and amazing and how successful everyone is. There's a lot about what people struggle with as designers, what they go through as new labels. So it's really quite honest. And what I worked out with the Fashion Advocate, so I was sort of searching online for brands to interview, and other than Googling for hours on end, or, you know, going through the iconic, and then, but a lot of that is offshore made, and, you know, you've got to spend a lot of time to find unique brands. What I worked out with the Fashion Advocate when I was trying to find brands was that there wasn't somewhere that you could go if you wanted to shop just Australian made fashion. So then I launched the Dress Collective. It's 100% Australian made fashion, and there are just under 40 designers, and there are a couple in here today. And the thing that's different with the Dress Collective is under each and every item there's a link to the designer's story. So instead of just being, you know, somewhere that you would go and buy clothes, what I wanted to build and promote was, you know, why you're buying clothes. My ethos is buy less, choose local, shop local. And in order to do, I mean, you have to be educated when you buy clothes if it's going to make a difference. So being able to read about every single one of the designers, where it's made, where it's designed, that's what the Dress Collective does. And there's a blog, we share news about the designers and what they're doing, and shows that they've got coming up and all those kinds of things. And the other thing that's really different about the Dress Collective is that it's a really good community. We have a Facebook group that's private just for the designers, and it's a place where they kind of share news or ask questions. Or one of them posted the other day that they just got a new buttonhole machine in their studio. If any of the other designers needed it, they could go and use it. So it's a really good community, and that was another one of the things that I didn't have when I was starting out, was sort of somewhere to go, where do I find, I don't know, labels or whatever. The community base is what you need when you're starting a label, because it is really, really hard. So yeah, that's the Dress Collective. And we are looking into doing a pop-up shop in the next month or so. Not looking into, we are doing a pop-up shop, which is another really good way for the designers to kind of reach the market as well. We do lots of different things. I say we, even though it's just myself, but I say we because we're a community of designers. I also did the runway for Banff, and that was a sellout event. We had 257 people there. So the Dress Collective is what I'm trying to do with the Dress Collective is, yeah, I mean, make a difference and make it more than just sort of about buying clothes. It's more about building the Australian industry in fashion. So that's me. That's my two businesses. And the advice that I have for starting a business is always trial and error. I obviously did a lot for 10 years before I kind of worked out what I wanted to do, but even if you work out what you're going to do in the beginning, staying with the same business, there's still going to be a lot of trial and error, and that's okay, because only through trial and error do you work out, you know, there's always challenges in business. Gain experience in travel. So I was lucky enough to get my scholarship and travel in fashion, but I think, especially in fashion, travelling and understanding the international market is really important. It's quite competitive, and it's not something to be scared of. I think you have to have an understanding of what you're up against if you're going to start a fashion label, because it is a really competitive industry, not just locally but internationally. So I think it's really good to travel and kind of get a feel for what's going on everywhere, and then obviously come back and stay focused in what you're doing. Explore funding and training. I didn't do that. I didn't explore funding. I kind of built everything off whilst working full time. Now I run my two businesses full time. But funding is obviously always beneficial, and training. So using people like the Council of Textile and Fashion, and using the help and resources that are out there. It's really important when you're starting out. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and persist it's going to be hard, I won't lie to you. It is really hard running your own business. It's really, really hard, but it's worth it. And when you get up every day and you get to do something that you love, it's it's good. That's it.
Thanks, Claire. I think that's a great list of advice. And I think one thing a couple of things that came through very similar to what things that Bron was talking about was the story, getting the story right, and then the kind of the community around you when you're starting a business or you're growing a business. But both those things is just so important that people can connect with you. But also you've got the support. It sounds like you get that community is everyone's supporting each other within the your designers that are on board with you. So any questions for Claire? Yeah.
How do you make your money, I guess, through the Dress Collective? Do you take a percentage of what they sell?
Yeah, so we take a percentage, and there's also an admin fee getting the designers up online. Yeah. And then through the sort of the extra activities that we do, like the runway and the pop-up shop and those kinds of things. And I also help out with a lot of PR and marketing on a one-on-one basis with them as well. So, yeah.
Can I ask how much the percentage is that you?
Yeah, 20%. Yeah. So normal wholesale is 50%. 50% when you go into a shop as a label. So the 20-80%, I mean, it's really good. That 80% is still such a huge chunk for the labels and their make sales. So
So do you work on like consignment? Are the designers sending out their own things, or are you keeping stuff?
So it's drop ship. Yeah. Another one of the things that the Dress Collective does, because a lot of the labels, you know, when they're starting out, they're so small and sort of testing out size ranges, and we do drop ship and allow that delivery time frame. So labels only have to make what sells. So it's a really good kind of financial way to do it. So instead of sort of prepping a whole range of sizes in every single style, they do one, they shoot a lot, and then they make only the pieces that sell.
I just wanted to say thank you for contributing to the Australian fashion industry.
Thank you.
I've been doing a lot of research lately on, since the Rana Plaza collapse and just people's lack of awareness about how, the mass fashion trade and what that does to the fashion industry. And I just think it's so great that, we can kind of get someone like you is bringing that back to Australia.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's another really big reason why I do what I do. There's something like 146 million children forced into labour in the worldwide industry. And there's a lot of really horrible statistics that I won't tell you. But taking that negative and turning it into a positive and making that work for what's going on locally, that's what I am trying to do. I mean, so many people are employed in the Australian industry, and it contributes to so much in the economy. So, and that's not to say that there aren't factories overseas that are safe and okay, but going from, the stats that are out there, it's not very pretty. So having control and making that conscious decision to support Australian made, it's important for me.
And contributing in a positive way. Thank you.
My name is Rose Rossi. I run a hat making, or starting to run a hat making business, and I also taught in the tertiary system hat making and yarn construction. Do you direct your designers to people in the industry, like hat makers and construction companies and the like?
Yeah, sure do. That's something that we've started doing, and it's what I came today to a couple of weeks ago. A lot of the designers sort of come to me and ask for questions, and I direct them generally to the council. But I mean, if you want to send me an email through the website, and we can sit down and definitely.
One of the things that we're doing, which we can talk about in a few months' time, is trying to develop the visibility of people like you to the industry. And we have the TFIA directory, which is pretty clunky at the moment. But we will be developing that into something that's much more usable and can help all those connections happen. So,
Sorry, I just wanted to know, are you actually, or any of your designers, fair trade accredited yet, or are you working towards that?
A few of them are Ethical Clothing Australia accredited. Fair trade, I'll have to get back to you. I mean, they're all Australian made, and I check on all the factories and those kinds of things, and it's part of the criteria before they go up. That obviously everything is 100% Australian made. Even for, shirt brands, they get the shirts made overseas, but they print them here and don't take those labels on. It's got to be 100% across the board. But yeah, a couple of them are Ethical Clothing Australia accredited too.
I've just got a question about your marketing strategy to get consumers onto the website in light of the fact that they can go to Zara or Topshop or any of those and get their clothing delivered the next day. How do you market your business so that people can find you?
Yeah, sure. It's quite a lot of SEO done. I work with a lot of bloggers that do a lot of online content for backlinks. All of the design is really proactive as well, which helps. And I don't know, I mean, it's built a really good organic following. Doing the Vamp was really good as well. That was really great exposure. But cross-promoting through the Fashion Advocate as well. I always promote the Dress Collective and the Fashion Advocate, and the two of them work really well together. So that's got, I think, the magazine itself has had 150-something thousand reads across the two editions globally. So, I promote the Dress Collective through the Fashion Advocate, which works really well. I'm really proactive with marketing and PR to local media myself as well. So, blood, sweat and tears. There's no, I don't have sort of a magical answer for you that kind of made it boom. It's just hard work and doing it slowly.
last question, yeah.
Is Fashion Advocate just for Australian designers? Like, do you come the Australian designers?
Just Australian, yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of stories on the blog from when I was travelling, obviously, and content on there, but now it's just, it's Australian, but it's Australian fashion, lifestyle and beauty.
And the product need to be made in Australia as well?
Yeah, that's where it's going now. Originally, it's taken me a while to kind of hone it down, obviously, because it started when I was overseas, but that's the way it's going now. Yeah.
Thanks again, Claire.
And it's great to be here and see so many of you here with young emerging businesses and those of you thinking of starting up. And there's two parts that we wanted to share today. The first, I'm going to share a little bit about our group before handing over to Frank Kisvarda, who's our Deputy Chairman and I work closely with. And so I do share the name of the business, Charles Parsons, which isn't by coincidence. We are a family company which was founded by my great-grandfather in 1915 in Sydney. So I've got a little bit of information on the different parts of the business. As some of you may be familiar with us, some of us perhaps not, but we're a few businesses within, so just to go through a little bit of that. There are 4 core areas. So we have apparel, fabrics and componentry businesses, homewares, garments businesses, and also an outdoor stream as well. So we are a diversified wholesaler, and as I mentioned, founded by my great-grandfather, and the values of which the company was founded on and remain very important around building trusted, innovative partnerships, and that remains as important today as when the company was founded 100 years ago. We're family owned, still owned by descendants of the founder, and my mother is chairman. My role is managing director. So we supply customers throughout Australia and New Zealand, Asia, and also export to America and a little bit to Europe on the fashion fabrics side. We're very proud to be supporters of local manufacturing in Australia and New Zealand, and whilst there are a number of businesses within the group in aggregate supplying local manufacturing, be it apparel as well as interiors, collectively is the largest part of the group. So my forefathers, so they see the family resemblance. I don't have a portrait painted yet. They're all quite a bit older than me. My great-grandfather, Charles Leslie Parsons, my father in the middle, Charles Vincent, and my grandfather, Charles Riviere. So this is a picture which I love in terms of for the Lawns Department. It was taken in Sydney around the 50s, and the yardsticks measuring of the lengths there, and obviously times have changed a lot since then for the industry, and fortunately for us as a company as well, as if that were, or if we were relying upon that alone, the company would have ceased many years ago. Probably better to just see the graphics because there's a bit too much detail, and apologise for the narrative on some of the divisions, but the company sort of diversified and grown over many years through acquisition. In total, the group would have made over 40 acquisitions of different sizes, starting from the 70s right through to most recent last year. Overall, most of those have gone well, but not always, and so there's certainly lessons in that, but we're in a fortunate position where we continue to look and to be able to diversify and grow the business for the future. And indeed, CP Ventures, which Frank will be talking to, is a part of that strategy as well. But apparel fabrics, so componentry of fabrics for school wear, corporate wear, trimmings, so all the components that go into the manufacturing of garments. Fashion fabrics, so a team based in Auckland design and release 2 ranges per year. So David Smith's the agent for the range here in Melbourne, some of you may know, and does a great job. So they also export to North America and a little bit into the UK as well. Eclipse Textiles is a business we bought just over 3 years ago, specialise in microfabrics for activewear, dancewear, swimwear, and based up in Brisbane, and they do a great job, and very proud to have them as part of the group. Then on the homewear side, we have a couple of businesses, Repeat, so the biggest part of their business is cushions, but they also do napery, throw rugs, and which was a business that was acquired in the late 80s. KS Textiles, perhaps may not be familiar with, but there's 2 parts to their business. The largest part is supplying local bedding manufacturers, or in Australia as well as New Zealand mattress tickings, and they also represent and sell the Gainsborough homeware brand in Australia, as well as SAS homewares. We have our interiors division, which is fabrics for curtains and upholstery, also coated linings as well in Australia and New Zealand, which was a business we established in the late 60s. Previously Charles Parsons Furnishings, but now collectively Charles Parsons Interiors. And then in terms of garments, so we have S&R Fashions, who supply large vertical retailers in Australia and New Zealand, including Sports Girls, Suzanne, French Connection, Seed, Farmers, Max Fashions, amongst some of their customers. We purchased Line 7 about 7 years ago, I think, in New Zealand. There's 2 streams to that business, supplying agricultural garments, so for protecting farmers for the wet weather and inclement cold conditions. And we're just in the process of relaunching the Marine brand in Australia and New Zealand as well, although that's probably what it's better known for many. And So we see this great opportunity, but not without its challenges. But brand work we're certainly very proud to have. And I guess in the outdoor, and it may seem as somewhat as an unusual fit for the group, we own Daichi, and so it was a business that was established almost 30 years ago, founded by a couple specialised in swags, and probably 6 or 7 years ago they were looking to take their supply chain offshore, and we helped them transition that to Asia, and then distributed the range for a number of years, and we were fortunate enough to be able to buy the brand about 4 years ago, and yeah, great business, growing well, and since diversified into tents, so there's air tents and rooftop tents, and so representing by brand, just to share some of the different brands, so as well. And in terms of where we are, so Australia, Melbourne's the biggest part of our business, and we have a distribution centre in Thomastown servicing Australia, but also a large office in Sydney, sales offices in Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. In New Zealand, Auckland's our biggest location, and we also have sales offices in Wellington and Christchurch. We have one lucky person who gets to call Fiji home, supporting the manufacturing industry there, which we're also very proud to supply. And we have a sourcing and merchandising office in Shanghai, principally supporting our garment businesses. So we have about 350 staff in total, and we also have our own accredited laboratory, which is something unique and is available for outside testing. Anyone who's ever looking to have something done, based in Melbourne as well, with details of that on our website. I do have some brochures if anyone's interested, in addition to the CP Ventures on the group. But that's what I wanted to cover, and I'll hand over to Frank now, who's going to talk through CP Ventures. So, thank you.
Well, thank you again for inviting us on today. And I've been involved with Charles Parsons for about 2 or 3 years as a director. I've been involved in the industry for about 40 years, so it makes me about 102, so that's not too bad. But overall, look, Charles Parsons, as mentioned here from Charles himself, has actually given you a good scope on how well established the company has been a great support to the industry and still maintains to do that. But we've all got to be realistic as well. The industry's changed dramatically, and every company needs to change as well. So part of our, I guess, strategy and ambition is to actually change the company as it stands to become and continue to become vibrant, but also look at the industry generally as we've been feeding and they feed us at the same token. We have over 7,000 customers, as an example, across Australasia. So we've got a huge amount of customer base. We've got a lot of new starting companies that come to us looking for fabric support and all those other type of things. So I guess part of the genesis of our idea was to actually say, how do we go to the next stage to make sure we foster the new industry, but be partnering it? We're not a cash cow, although some people might see it as that particular point in time. It's not meant to be a cash cow. It's meant to be actually an encouragement to actually take the companies from where they are now to where they need to be in the future. So our pitch on why we started CP Ventures was not a venture capitalist company where the venture become vultures and then they say, you want that much out of you. It's more a venture to actually encourage people to actually take the next step by using our, I guess, experience in IP. So part of the experience in IP as we have is because we've got effectively 10 different companies rolled into one, we cover a majority of the actual parts of the industry. So CP Ventures was thought of initially at the board level to try to think through, in general, what is the next generation that CP or Charles Parsons Holding would be involved in. So we could have looked at a number of ways. As Charles said, we've acquired over 40 companies in the last probably 40 years. And we're still in the acquisition trade, but that's a separate matter. When we acquire companies, we look at a very purposeful way, where previously we used to take over companies that weren't purposeful, but they needed CPR. And then we gave them the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and sometimes they survived, and sometimes they did, as Charles mentioned. So our idea is not to actually be, the last port of call before you die, or 1 minute before midnight and you change the pumpkin, but it's more to do with where you're going to go to next. So we've split acquisitions to CP Ventures. So I guess the objective is, what do we offer? And what are we looking for? And what is the process? So I guess it's been launched with the idea that the objective is to be able to partner with companies that not are, I guess we're avoiding startups, and I'll tell you why we're avoiding startups, because I think we need to know that people are prepared to actually put their own time, their energy and their own skin literally into it before we're prepared to actually help you along. Because we're not geared to actually assist startup companies. It's a separate type of business model to assist startup companies. We're geared to actually say to somebody, if you've been in business for 4 or 5 years and you start to show light at the end of the tunnel and you've actually put it, as the previous speaker said, a lot of hard work, a lot of energy, a lot of blood and sweat and tears and everything else, and you persist, that's the people we'd like to talk to. So the broad-based experience including, of course, expertise in design, marketing, supply chain, distribution systems, capital to take the business to the next end, and board and executive support. So because we've got a very wide range of people, we've got PhDs and scientists, we've got people who actually understand fabric technology, we've got a lot of graphic artists, we've got graphic artists who actually do web paging, we've got, out of the 300 odd people, I guess we probably cover most of the areas. We outsource very little because we effectively can do it all internally. When we need to outsource, it's above and beyond what we should be able to do internally. As we were saying before, it covers everything from, before we come up with a rooftop tent or a new tent, we've actually spent 18 months on research, and we've now got an evolution tent where basically pump up a little bit of air, and we've got a tent up in about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, compared to the frustrating time that you had to put all these poles and everything. It didn't come by itself. It actually required a lot of internal research, a lot of testing. We've even got a testing area outside to blow wind on it for 100 kilometres per hour, and rain, and make sure it's waterproof. So we have to stand behind each product. And we won't launch a product unless we actually are completely confident that it'll actually pass all particular tests. Much the same with all our home interior type products. We've spent a lot of time in actually developing prints. We've recently launched an outdoor coated type of product that really can sustain. And most of it's actually been picked up by overseas companies. We're actually selling them into Spain, selling them into Europe. So again, that's an expertise in homewares. So what we are looking for, I guess, is businesses that are centred around textiles or have some textiles involvement. They don't need to be in textiles, because even technology that offers us and you an edge in digital printing, design functions, any of those type of interactive things are still important because they're interrelated to actually improving the end product. Design is very important, uniqueness is very important, the actual IP involved in getting that uniqueness to the market is very important, functionality is important, so all those things need to be measured. Demonstrating the sustainable competitive advantage. What's sustainable competitive advantage? Nice sort of words. Really it means effectively, it's not a one night, fly by night, great idea, somebody supersedes you next week. Take the industry of photoelectric cells in terms of actually having solar energy. Many years ago, only 2 or 3 years ago actually, it cost thousands of dollars to develop a photocell to generate 1/4 megawatt. Now they can do that for 1/10 of the price because the materials that they're using are quite advanced and they keep changing. So if you invest in that type of area, it hasn't got sustainability unless they've got a lot of research behind them and they're actually going to put a lot more money behind it. So the sustainable factor for us would be, if we look at a project that comes to us or a company who wants to have our support, we need to say, how sustainable are you? Or is it a great idea? How long is that great idea going to be? And what are you going to do about maintaining that great idea? Trying to do a business plan demonstrating the trading history. Now I know most companies find business plans really a bit of an enigma and a real scary thing, but a business plan doesn't have to be a scary thing. It's a matter of what are you promising to deliver? That's what a business plan is, and how are you going to deliver it? That's really what a business plan should be. So what are you promising to deliver, such as a grand statement, and how are you going to deliver it? And then we need to know a little bit about why you think you can keep delivering it. Next point is that, is it scalable? And the scalable factor, you may be a $1 million business or $500,000 business or $200,000 business, you're probably not a $10 million business. And that's why we're not looking at acquisition, because if we're acquiring a business, we need to have a business with critical mass, I call it. in CP Ventures, we're not looking at critical mass now, we're looking at critical mass in the future. So it can actually grow to the future. So it's a matter of saying, but it's not scalable. Scalable means that unless, you might be just selling it into a wholesale environment, or you may be selling it to a few retailers, or you're purely web-based, whatever it may be. Can you actually take that particular item, project, IP, whatever it may be, into the next two stages? Into export, possibly, or into B2C or C2C, whichever way you want to take it. Demonstrating existing branding, I guess, competitive advantage. As you probably know, with branding, is what is your competitive advantage? Over the years, when I've sort of helped startup companies many years ago, I basically said, tell me your competitive advantage, tell me why you're different, tell me why people are going to buy your product compared to somebody else, and how long will they keep on buying it. And if it's only requires quality and service, that's not sufficient enough. It's important, but that's what we call giving these days. If we haven't got that, we haven't got any competitive advantage anyway. So you need to have that plus other. Sounds difficult, but I guess everybody has to work at it. Demonstrating existing branding competitive advantages set in the marketplace, and that has a scope to CP Ventures to become an equity partner. And how we become an equity partner effectively is saying, well, what do you need to take you to the next stage? Now, some companies might need a bit more marketing, others might require a lot more distribution, others require supply chain, because the supply chain is too narrow, others require contacts, others require marketing, a website, whatever it may be. So our first point of contact is that we put you in touch with our client manager, as we call him, and he's equipped, because he's running his own business and so forth, he's one of our business managers from one of our divisions, and he's equipped to understand, because he started his own business only about 10 or 12 years ago, and he grew his business quite substantially, probably grew too quickly, and he was having financial problems himself, but he's learned from experience, and he understands that space quite well. So here's our first port of call from anybody from the industry. He then works out whether there is enough of those particular points that we want to look at. He then passes it on to the management, which includes Charles, of course, as the group managing director, and plus his team. And then a group look at it and say, yep, there's enough value in this for both parties, and then we start connecting. And then work out what you need, when it's needed, how much of it's needed, and then we eventually then link it with what area of the industry you're in. So if you're in homewares, we link it to our team who look after homewares. If you're in fashion, we link it into our fashion group. If you're in outdoors, we link it to our outdoor group. So whatever, if you're none of those groups, then we'll probably look at one of the generalist people. So we will then work closely to actually develop the business and your business plan, not our business plan. Our role is to be, I guess, partner in hand, and how we get paid back by is actually eventually getting more equity in the business and actually having more shareholding in the business. We don't ask for any money in, of course, and we can't give you money out either until we actually, and in most cases we won't actually give money out, we'll actually direct out money to be used or use it in kind. And in kind effectively means, what is it worth for us to do all that work for you? Or buy the stock, or give you our stock, depending on where it is, not give it to you. Supply it to you. It's not a good word of giving, because otherwise it means that we're handing it out. So, if your business meets the criteria that said you are, then the process is simple. Submit an application, it's all online, and you submit it to Ian. Ian Everest is the chap who actually is our, what we call, first contact person. He then, if he's happy with the application, he'll probably ring the people. If he's not happy with the application, he'll ring you anyway and say, this is good, it's missing that, or you're not right for it, or you're right for it, whatever it may be. Once he's approved it, then it, as I said, goes through the corporate management who look at it. As a team of people who's in finance, marketing, so forth, they go through it together and then decide whether we should then have a total presentation from you. And then you make a presentation to them accordingly. It's not like the Shark Tank, by the way, if you're thinking about the presentation. No, you're an idiot, do this, we'll give you that much. It's not meant to be of that particular nature. It's more to be a cooperative nature, but we're fairly honest with you. We'll say, this is what needs to be done. You may not be ready now, but it doesn't mean it excludes you later on. You can always come back later on if you actually get disorganised or that organised or whatever it may be. So, I think it was past that. So that's really what CP Ventures are all about. Hopefully it's a win-win situation. We want to see the encouragement of new companies, or relatively companies, as part of the new generation that goes through in terms of getting the Australian industry, which may not always, we'd love everything to be made in Australia, but that's unfortunately not always practical. But I do applaud the fact that we've got that happening, and I've always been a great supporter. And I used to run a lot of Australian manufacturing companies. I'm a great supporter of it. But I'm also a realist, so I've got to look at the worldwide aspect. So it doesn't matter where it's made, we don't have that as part of our condition. The main condition is that we've got to have an understanding, the willingness of that party that wants to come to us, wants to be partner with us, and they will grow with us. And as they grow, we have to decide up front how that share of the growth will be, shared across the board. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank.